Right, so we now move on to item 9, the Capital Project Performance Report. And this is the first time we've seen this report in the new template. So Ruth, you might want to make some comments on that. And also some further additions that we should expect to see to this report in September. So thank you very much indeed. If you'd like to make some introductory remarks. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. So on page 69, you will see that there is a summary of changes there. It provides some input kind of around what we've done differently from the previous format that you will have seen for this Capital Project Performance Report. So I'll just highlight a few of the key changes. So on the first page, you'll see highlights project delivery complete from the previous period. On page 54, there's a financial position graph. So you'll see that there's a green bar that's going to bring you up to the actuals to date. The blue then brings up that bar to the current forecast, that's the project manager forecast. And then the red line that you'll see on the graph is a prediction on the forecast based on the financial year spend to date. Underneath that graph, there's some interpretation as to around deliverability of that project manager forecast, and that's by delivery unit. The breakdown of the council and third-party delivered projects is the same as previously reported in the previous format. And there's brand new information on page 59 around our current project status for in-flight projects. So this is all the projects that we currently have underway that sits in the execute phase. So in execute, that includes design and it includes construction as well. So the project status is set by our project managers in their monthly reports. It considers cost, time, scope, risks and issues. All our red and amber projects, that's essentially just a flag that the project requires attention, and they are all being actively managed by our project managers and our project governance boards. There's a further detail on the following pages in relation to all projects that are flagging red that are over $1 million in total project forecast. So this is really around highlighting some information around kind of those kind of high profile, higher investment projects. Again, they're all actively managed and there is some commentary there to explain what we're doing to address those projects. So that's a little bit of a preamble around the new format. To speak to kind of the content of the report, the data is captured as of 20th of May this year. Project managers were forecasting 360 mil against a budget of 523 mil at that time. Obviously, lockdown and alert restrictions did impact on our construction program. And we're currently reviewing claims for extensions of time and associated cost in relation to those restrictions at the moment. We don't have full impact visibility of that at present. We are working to bring that together and we will provide that to the committee when it becomes available. Just note that delays or variations to cost may not necessarily impact on the total overall budget or project delivery complete. We do try and look to identify efficiencies in our projects to reduce the overall impact where we can. Page 56, carry forward and bringbacks, 163 mil net carry forward. While that seems reasonably high, we will not be bringing that all into next year's program. 90 million of that carry forward will move into next financial year, and this is as signed off in the revised annual plan currently out for consultation. Moving on to the Watchlist Report. So this is all those projects that have been identified by Council as high profile, higher investment at the beginning of last financial year. You'll note that there's 2 projects on that watch list that were directly impacted by COVID. Ferry Road Master Plan and downstream effects Cranford Street. The forecast date reflects the revised construction program. At the beginning of each financial year, we do review this list and we do have staff recommendations around what we do with this going forward from the July report. So it is recommended that we remove the Riccarton Road bus priority as well as the New Brighton hot salt water pools given they're finished. And there are 2 recommendations that we put the Otakaro Avon River Corridor on and the Evans Pass and Dyers Pass Safety Improvement Project, again due to public profile and higher investment. I'll now take any questions.
Great, thank you. So if we go right back to the very beginning of the report, Obviously, there are a number of projects which are now behind where we would have expected to be with delivery versus original forecasting. We've got forecasts in this report as at the 20th of May, and we've got commentary in that first table there, delivery on track to meet current forecast. Again, that's as at 20th of May. Are you anticipating much change in this between now and year end?
So the forecast that came out in June is around the same, so about the same carry forward. So we're still on track, essentially, to deliver to the forecast.
Yeah, so
Yep.
what we're seeing in this report is likely to be,
Yep.
give or take a small amount, what we would see as the year-end position.
Year-end result, yeah.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Are there any questions on this report? Jimmy?
Thank you, Chair. First one on page 63. The Hornby Library Customer Service and Southwest Leisure Center. Here you highlight original delivery date will be in April 2020, but current approved is the December 2022. So in here, my question is approved by management level or by governance level? Who approved this one? Delay for 2 years and 8 months.
So I understand the original delivery date is from the LTP 3 years ago, and then is that right? Yeah, and then we've rebaselined that based on revised decisions and subsequent annual plans. Is that right?
Okay. And the other one, particularly regarding to the potential risk, you highlight all risk are monitored and mitigate actively managed by delivery unit. Regarding to this facility, first question is regarding to this couple of years delay, particular focus on the construction cost, the escalations, how to mitigate this effect, how much the cost will be additional cost.
I'll need to defer to delivery unit for that.
So there's no escalation costs allocated for this, Jimmy. So no.
So you mean all the original?
The budget is the budget. Yep. Yep. So we're still working within the original budget, and we're working towards that at the moment with our concept. Yeah. And it is identified as a risk as well.
No any risk.
No, it's identified as a risk, but it's not currently a risk.
The other one is I remember regarding the spoke, they have option for the hydro slide or hydro therapy. I couldn't remember. Those one I remember staff were presented to the local community, particularly they will engage with some other source of funders, particularly to get more funding. So I'm not sure the moment the size and also those pricing reference I'm not yet to receive. So I just don't know who will more in order to review this one.
Yeah. So hydrotherapy is in the concept design. It's not currently funded, and it's a piece of work that Nigel and his team are dealing with at the moment with regards to how they fund that. But we've made it an opportunity in the delivery of this current concept that there's space for it, and there is an allocated space for it in the current concept design that we've got.
Because I engaged with the local community, they told me that they're still waiting for this information. They can do nothing to engage with the other source of funding.
No, we've consulted with the community board, and we're in that consultation period right now with the concept design. So Peter McGibbon's leading that, and he's leading that with the current community board and consulting with the public at the moment. So.
Okay. The other one is page 67, major cycleway. Template 1A, template to the water shop. I remember on the 5th of June, the elected member, SPA, also the resident association, as well as the surrounding residents, we have all together the cyclists in the area. Then the particular concern, those are the safety issue, cyclists or the traditional issue. But up to now, I asked Tommy for, I have not yet get those meeting notes, so I don't know. Almost 1 month, I just don't know what's their status. I asked Tommy for, they have no any idea.
It may be that the answers to some of these questions need to be provided offline and are not able to be provided in this meeting. These are quite detailed questions.
I can follow that up after the meeting and ensure that they get back to the community board, and my apologies they haven't so far. But staff are working with the community group as well, the staff that were out on site.
Let's take that offline and let's get the information back. I mean, clearly there's been some time since the, this has been outstanding for some time, so that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. Last question.
Yep.
Last question is where about, I remember last year, monthly basis, staff always presented to us the project, Horseway Junction Road extension. But after lockdown, I didn't see this the project now. Looks like, the weaponized disappear. I just don't know what's the
No, it hasn't.
rationale.
The bulk of the funding for Horsewell Junction Road extension is
Yes.
in financial year 22, and it was there as part of the last annual plan, not this one. So it hasn't been shifted. The team are still working to progress the project with KiwiRail. We have agreements and we are working through detailed design with KiwiRail, so we are making progress.
But in 2018 to 19, the council, we did have put a budget for $7.6 million on those annual plan.
It is
So I just don't know.
still in FY22.
So you mean
that
that
was
it's
done
carry
as part
forward
of
for the
that.
2 years? If 2
was-
years, at least we need to update status. Why this project not on the list?
That was done as part of the last annual plan.
We
We
did
are
also
progressing.
report that there are issues, we're working with Nzta to get subsidy, and it now doesn't fit in to that higher level criteria around the government policy statement. But we also, as you will remember, we have applied for shovel-ready money for that project, and it's got into stage 2. But you know as much about what happens now as I do. So we are looking at ways of how can we fund that so it's not all there. In the meantime, we are progressing totally, and I must admit, I think we've made good progress with KiwiRail on a number of those sorts of projects. So we're doing what we can, but basically there's the funding side of it that we need to work through as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so further questions. Pauline, Tim, Aaron and Anne.
Well, my one was following on from Jimmy's, actually looking at the cycleway at Tuckers and Sturrocks once again being held up with KiwiRail. So are we able to get an update on what progress is being made? Because I believe you are making some. Is that correct? Or?
Yes, we are, and we're agreeing a program of works for the Northern Line with KiwiRail at the moment. We are reopening negotiations around the leasing requirements, so that we are making progress, and we were planning to put an update in the transport report.
Oh, lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
More clarification with you, Jimmy. Are you saying with regards to the Hornby pool that the community are looking and wanting to raise money to do or to support the project because we don't have money on the budget for the
Hydrotherapy.
So are you saying at the moment they can't do anything?
Yeah, they told me they can do anything. They need the information from staff. They told me.
All right, so we got the answer from staff on that.
Because that's since September last year.
Yeah, all right. This is an opportunity to be asking questions to staff rather than having conversations across the table. Was there a further question or
I actually
clarification?
think it's more a question to the top of the table with regards to, we talk a lot about partnerships with communities. There's obviously a bit of a gap here, and it's not I don't think it's I think everybody just needs clarification on how that happens, because you've mentioned community board, but is there a disconnection between the community and the community board? I don't know the answer.
Well, I can't answer your question at this moment,
I don't
Tim,
think
because
staff could either.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's clear enough. So we will take that back
Yeah.
and check that both through Andrew and Nigel.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we can do that, and if we can get any information circulated, that would be good, so that everybody's comfortable, because, I mean, what happens in this project may well have application to other projects
Well,
as
that's
well.
what I'm thinking. If we've got an issue here, then the bigger question is how do we, what is the process that we need to put in place
Yes.
to ensure that we have
So
these
first I need to
interactions?
see if we actually do have an issue, and if we have, how do we resolve it?
Yeah, and how we resolve it here may well have application for other projects as well. Thanks for raising it, that's great.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Mine's more of a procurement question. On the St Albans Centre, which is a wee bit late and later, it says project completion delayed due to material arrivals. Where are the materials coming from that they're delayed? Is this another one where we're not buying local? We're bringing in something weird and wonderful from the other side of the world?
We are, in fact, bringing in a very sustainable green building product out of Europe. We were going to go with X-Lam, so it's cross-laminated timber, the whole structure.
Right.
It's assembled on site. It went up, it arrived late because the boat coming out of Italy was when Italy was being ravaged. So it's arrived, we've stood it up, the roof's going on, so we lost a bit of time. Contractors moved off site for the 7-week period. Back on site, the timber had arrived, and that's a consequential delay.
So when you say sustainable, does that include the carbon miles for getting it here?
No.
Right, okay.
Whole of life, so no embodied energy costs in concrete and cement and bits and pieces.
And
So
that wood manufacturing tech, isn't there a company out of Nelson that do that?
there was, and that's who we were going to go with, and they bumped us and then decided to move to Australia. So we had to consequently re-inform our procurement process around a similar product, which is now, unfortunately, coming out of Europe.
So only Europe, nothing closer.
Exactly.
Right.
So the budget we had to work within, that was essentially what I think we've ended up with a fantastic solution there, and hopefully you'll be able to get through and have a look shortly.
Right, okay.
Thank you. Anne?
I just wanted to acknowledge the clear report. Thanks, Ruth, and it has answered my questions about why the MCRs have been delayed. So apologies to Peter for asking that question when the information is there. So thank you.
Yeah, if there is any feedback on this report format, given this is the first time that we've seen it, I'd be really happy informally to receive that. I'm hoping that the way the information is presented does make it easier for people to understand and give us immediate visual access to the information that's most important. So now we've got Mike and then Yanni. Mike.
Thank you. I'm not too sure if the right staff person's here to answer this, but one of the very first highlights you have is about the wellhead conversions, and it notes that Grassmere's been completed. But further down in the report, in the first attachment, it says that actually it hasn't been completed. So on page 61.
So it could be that project delivery has been completed, however, it was later than the target date.
Okay, so I've just got, it's just contradicting. I'm just trying to work out, has it been completed or has it not? Because currently, I look at the coronation map and it's delivering 0.5 ppm. And so it's just trying to work out exactly what's happening with that.
I'll take that offline.
Sorry.
Can we
Yeah,
take that offline?
if we can get
Yeah.
an update, that would be great. I mean, clearly there's a discrepancy, but if we can get some updated information on that makes it clear, that'd be fantastic.
My other question's around the main North Road bus lane modifications. And it's got in there service clashes remain a risk. Is that in relation to the underground services that they're having to... Do we know any more about that?
Generally, when we start digging up the road, it's quite it's more congested underneath than it is on top. So service clashes, whenever we have to start dealing with service clashes, or we have to start adjusting services, it becomes a risk. So it's often a risk. We do as much as we can to pothole it and address that ahead of time, but the services aren't always where we think they are when we open the road up.
Okay. And
so from Main North Road's perspective, it is still actually, it does remain a risk, but it is being well managed. They are potholing ahead to try and address it. And they're progressing well now.
yeah, what's the likely completion of that project? When do we expect them to be out of there?
I will have to come back to you, but I don't believe it's very far away.
And it notes in there that there's been increased costs due to asbestos in coal tar.
Yes,
I thought we had
asbestos
sort of
pipes.
got on top of the coal tar issue to stop those unexpected cost increases.
It's like services. Yes, we do our best to do that, and we haven't quite got on top of it on that one. So we have gone and done as much more potholing than we would normally do. But again, sometimes it's not quite where you expect it to be, despite where you've potholed to find it.
Okay, thank you. While you're there, one last question. I noticed for transport, there's obviously quite a lot of carry forward projects, 106. What would be I guess, of all the reasons, because obviously there'd be a variety of reasons why they carry forward, what would be the top 2 reasons that are causing the carry forward?
I think that's one for the boss.
Just to the Main North Road delivery date, that's October.
Okay, thank you.
And they're all tracking up.
I think the biggest challenges for us in terms of delivery of the transport program is consultation and engagement and council approvals, and it's not just the 1 month that we go out to consult on. Generally, a lot of our projects you're chucking in 8 to 10 months to get it ready for consultation, go through that process. But it's all the engagement with the people afterwards, with lodged submissions or whatever else. Generally need to brief councillors and then get a council report. So that process is often pretty significant. Nzta Approvals is another one. So, we don't want to go to detailed design or contract until we've got Nzta Approvals, and that can be pretty slow in coming. So a lot of our projects and perhaps it's a good thing for us to report to you on because it's relevant to the craft as well in terms of delivery of that program of works. A lot of our projects take years of lead-in time before we issue the contract. Years.
And so therefore, it'd be fair to say that we don't have an issue with, contractors and capacity within the contract.
Plenty of capacity at the moment.
So Mike, it's one of the areas that I'm clearly interested in. I've asked Lynette to give me a chronology on a couple of projects for us to better understand together what that actually looks like, rather than just talking in general, because ultimately we need to see how we collectively can do this better and quicker.
So it sounds as though there are a couple of conversations that might all align to the same place. This conversation we're going to have about how we can speed up the craft-funded programme and the work that Dawn's just described are all about how we can speed up this whole programme of work in the transport space. So it may well be when we have the craft discussion, that's got some application to the broader piece of work that Dawn talked about as well. It's good to know that all this is happening. Excellent. All right, thanks, Mike. And then we're now coming to Yanni.
I see the Linwood Pool's actually got, first off, the baseline date, and I think for people like Jimmy, the baseline date was not December 21, so it was earlier. And I think some of the baseline dates, like Naval Point, is June 2015, so I just think some of those baseline dates are not quite consistent. So I just wanted to raise that point because it does give an impression that some projects are delayed and others aren't. And I don't think some of them are just very accurate when you compare them against each other. But just in terms of Linwood Pole, I was quite surprised to see it's listed as red, and you've got unforeseen conditions, large objects, contamination, and natural perils. And given that we went through a very extensive site selection almost, 3 years ago, I was quite surprised to see that in there, but also didn't quite know what the phrase natural perils meant.
Can I just say something around the format of the watch list is that cost and time are now directly based on the exception. So it's in a range. If we're over budget, it's flagging red. If we're on budget forecasting, it's green. And all of the risk now has got its own column. So what you're reading at the moment, Yanni, is all just the risk associated with that project.
Okay.
It's not a current issue. It's not
Right.
impacting on cost and time at present,
Yeah.
but we do have to manage risks on our projects. If we don't, they end up becoming issues, and they
Sure.
do end up impacting cost and time.
Right.
And it is a very much an unknown, but we're in that stage right now, as you know. We've broke ground now, and we're doing the demolition work on site, so that risk will be mitigated in the next 2 weeks anyway with regards to what we find in ground. We have done detailed site investigation, you're right and you're correct, but there's never, we can never say we will never find anything of large scale that could impact the project and
Right.
could therefore not be costed for. So therefore it sits as a risk, and that's just good project management.
And what's natural peril? What is that? relate to?
Water levels, in-ground water levels, but again, we've done a great deal of information around our water table and the
Right.
impact upon that water table. But again, we put it in there as a risk because until it's actualised, then we won't know. But we're now in the ground, so we'll find out quite soon whether we've got any issue. And if they don't, if they don't come to light, then they just get taken back down.
No,
to
that's
the
great.
ground.
Thanks. I just hadn't heard that phrase before, so it was good to see it in terms of just have a little bit more understanding. I did wonder if we need a specific coal tar strategy, because it does seem to keep coming up, and it does seem to keep increasing the cost that we required for some of these projects. So I just wondered, I don't know at what strategic level we look at how we deal with coal tar, and whether the costs associated with what we're doing is, if there's ways to do it more efficiently, or whether we need, it just seems to be a new thing that's emerged in the last sort of few years. And I presume that we've had lots of other projects before the earthquake where we had coal tar and maybe took a different approach. So I don't quite know what's changed there.
I'm not the right person to respond to that.
So David probably is.
What's changed is the rules around disposal of coal tar because of, help me here, someone, I can't remember the chemical name of whatever's that leaches out of it. So we used to be able to dispose of it into clean fill, now we've got to dispose it into a secure landfill, so there's an additional cost. I don't actually think it needs a strategy, it's an environmental policy. What we need to do is make sure that we do the necessary potholing, and that was what Lynette was talking about. She doesn't only pothole for services, she actually decides or tries to work out how much coal tar's in a pavement rehabilitation when we're doing, and then we've got to make sure that we move the right amount of money into the budget to actually compensate for that. We look at the most cost-effective way of disposing of it, so there's a few challenges around that. I think that basically we are just integrating it into our project management rather than needing some strategy on it.
Yeah, so rather than a strategy, we just need to make sure that we've got confidence in what you've described and the way that we mitigate any risk.
Right. And are we still sending it to Dunedin?
Variety. We have sent some to Dunedin where that's the most cost effective. We are working through a variety of different strategies to see if there are other options that are cost effective.
Right. And I just want to, it seems to, and again, just from this information, but it seems to be driving quite a high increase in costs. And I wondered whether things like the Waste Minimisation Fund or any sort of environmental fund that we could apply for that could help offset some of these significant costs.
Certainly not the Waste Minimisation Fund. The Waste Minimisation Fund funds recycling, recovery, that sort of thing. We are looking at alternatives to try and minimise our costs. Basically, we've got what is now used to be declared probably as a clean fill. It's now been declared as a potential pollutant, so we have to dispose of it in the appropriate way. As with everything, environmental standards change over time. And again, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact chemical, but they've traced it back and they've found it in waterways. Admittedly, most of that's coming, I think, from where it gets frittered away rather than from leaching. So while it's in place, it's not a problem. It's when we disturb it and what we do with that disturbed product that is the new rules are around.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
now,
just a final question in terms of the Tuam Street brick barrel. I see that timeline's gone out to February 21st. And I guess I'm just really concerned of the impact on those local businesses, given the COVID-19 and the huge disruption it's having. Are you, I'm just trying to understand the level of confidence around that February 21st date, given what's in here. And just, I won't say anything else, but just thanks for the report. I really enjoyed this format. I found it really good, easy to read. Sorry, and not easy to eat. No, but I found it really good at the start. Like it really clearly articulated the issues, and I just thought it was an excellent report in terms of the information and format. So yeah, just wanted to check on that Chatham Street brick barrel.
I'd need to go to the project manager and get risk associated with that date, but they will have...
Come down to the table. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure. Talent's looked after the capital program and water.
Fantastic. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. So the project manager works for me. I'm manager for project manager, but I'm aware of the situation. So there has been lack of productivities on this project. So we are assessing the ground conditions turn out to be quite different than we anticipated. So we have very less progress on that. Still we are able to complete 50% of the works. So as you asked, the confidence into this this completion date, it's still under assessment, but that's what we are forecasting at the moment.
Right. I'm just thinking of those businesses, because unfortunately this is kind of stalled at not the residential part, but more towards the business part. Have we got anyone talking to them about sort of help for rates or with COVID-19, but just sort of seeing what can be done?
We are aware that they are quite challenging those business owners around that alignment, and we have a strategy of making sure that we communicate them as well as we regularly talk to the contractors who have more burden to do the liaison with them on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we've fielded quite a lot of questions on this report, some of which have been very detailed, and some of which refer to work coming through community boards or perhaps would be more appropriately dealt with in other committees. There's also particularly been a lot of questions which have been asked which we haven't been able to provide answers for in the context of this meeting. All of that speaks to an early heads up about questions that you might want to be asking or areas of information you might want to explore, mean that we can have the information provided in the meeting or possibly even outside of the meeting, particularly on matters that really are matters of concern for community boards or elsewhere. So whilst we're happy to have questions asked and answered, I'm very aware that a lot of the questions have been asked haven't been able to be answered because we haven't had people in the room with the detailed information. If the questions had been signalled prior to the meeting, then we probably could have done that a lot more effectively. So that's probably just a take out for future meetings. I'm really keen to move on. Jimmy, what have we got?
I recommend those Horseway Junction Road extension project, the staff still the report update to us, part of this project. Because they've done several years, why they disappear? I just don't know.
So coming back to the question that Jimmy asked about this particular project, where would Jimmy expect to see that reported?
You would only see information around that project if you as a council decided to put it on the watch list.
So that comes back to the point that was made maybe 20 minutes ago,
yes,
around when we have that discussion for the new financial year. If you want that project to be considered to be reported on in that way because
yes,
it's on the watch list, that's the time to bring that into the discussion.
But they're already in the watch list. I don't know when just take away. I have no any idea. Yes.
Can we just move a resolution to add it now? Because I was going to add Lancaster Park as well.
Sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the way that I'd far prefer to consider it, making a change to the reporting regime for one more report of this financial year when there's a clear process which has been described to consider putting it in there in the next financial year. And there may well be some considerations as to why we would or wouldn't as well. That would be the time to do that.
Yeah, perhaps the question that Jimmy's asking is where does he find that information?
Yeah,
so
I
maybe
need to get the update status. I can, no other channel can get this update status.
Yeah.
So it's not in this report. I'm sure we can get the information to you outside of this meeting. The report has been moved by Sam, seconded by Mike. Is there any debate on this? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. And if you want to take that offline, Jimmy, I'm sure you can.